What's up, guys? This is Kalo, and normally I'm here to give you the lowdown on all things gaming, but welcome back to another episode of Community Kitchen, where we're cooking up the latest and greatest gaming news headlines. And who better to join me today than my game to my pass? Aden, why don't you say what's up?
Welcome everybody to Community Kitchen and Game Sandwich, where the only pass you need is the free one that subscribes you to our channel to enjoy our content.
I
Thank you.
like that. I
Shameless.
high five through the virtual screen
Oh,
here. That was a
oh.
good one. That was a really good one. And yeah, do what he says. That saves me time, effort, and my voice. But today, we got some news, and of course, this is coming off the heels of the massive layoffs that happened over at Xbox. And apparently, the Arkane Studio's founder brands Game Pass unsustainable and damaging. We're going to get into the quote here and then dissect this further because we have a nice little debate going on in gaming as of late. So the quote goes, "I think Game Pass's unsustainable model that has been increasingly damaging to the industry for a decade, subsidized by Microsoft's infinite money, but at some point, reality has to hit. I don't think Game Pass can coexist with other models. They'll either kill everyone else or give up." Then he continues, "What happens when all the money runs out? Is the most vocal concern in my network and one of the main economic reasons people I know haven't shifted into a business model. The infinite money thing never made any sense." So, I want to ask you, Aden, first of all, do we think Game Pass is this cancer to the world, in the gaming world specifically? And do you think it's damaging?
I mean, I don't think it's like a cancer to the world, but you know what? I can see where he's coming from just because, like, you need. It's unsustainable with the audience that it is, like, that it has, or whatever. Because, like, if it were the only game console that there was, and everyone just subscribed to Game Pass, and then there you go. They could probably use it to fund games, but I see all that money going towards Microsoft, and then Microsoft using it to, you know, pay for the development of games, pay for advertisement, pay for, voice actors, yada yada yada, everybody. I don't think that that in itself is sustainable just solely because they're not going to be able to get enough people to subscribe to it to keep funding everything. That's what I'm getting at. So, like, like that's just what I think is, like, that eventually people are either going to unsubscribe, or it just maintaining the same level of subscription service, people, like, it's just going to be unsustainable at that point, and then it will collapse.
Okay.
Not that it's like, ooh, cancer and, oh, it's destroying the gaming industry, because I don't really think it's destroying the gaming industry. It's just, you know.
It's very much a double-edged sword for what you exactly said. I think that Game Pass gives smaller games, I always go back to like Pentiment, Grounded, stuff like that, a chance to really survive and a chance to really, pop off. I also think a lot of Pal World, its success was primarily done off being available on Game Pass and then word of mouth of like, hey, this game's pretty fun. And the model for Game Pass isn't like, hey, you subscribe, you get all the games, and you can just kind of live like that. I think the bigger goal they had in mind is, hey, these games are here for a certain amount of time. We can take them off whenever. And then you can go on, if you really like the game, you can then go on to download it or go out and buy it. It's more of like a trial service than anything. And then I also view what it offers the consumer as far as like Play Anywhere, cloud gaming, all that stuff. That's just added benefits to the whole thing. But strictly talking about development side of things for video games, I think the whole infinite money, I don't think it can coexist, and what happens when the money runs out, I think that all stems back to how games are made nowadays. I think that all goes back to how studios are managing their time. I mean, Perfect Dark is the game that everyone's talking about. I'm not saying it's a good thing the studio closed down, but Microsoft views this as a bottom line. Are you profitable? Are you making us money? You go back to, we saw Perfect Dark. I'm going to look this up. When did we see? I think it was back in like 2020 or.
I don't know. I honestly didn't even know about Perfect Dark until the studio closed because I have never played Perfect Dark, so I couldn't say anything about it.
Yeah, I just remember there being a very long time between when we saw like this first little teaser trailer and then when we seen the actual gameplay stuff at the showcase last year. And that is where, game development starts coming into question whether if this could be a thing that can be sustainable. And I also understand that whenever there was questions of, oh, is Call of Duty going to come to Game Pass? And, like, how will that affect the game? How will that affect sales? And that's a clear indicator that really and truly it doesn't have any substantial impact. If anything, you're reeling in more players to your product. You're getting more eyes on it. And at the end of the day, all that companies care about is player count, consistent player count, and just speaking from a personal thing, I've tried, played games, and bought games that I normally never, ever would if it wasn't for Game Pass.
You know what? I have an interesting question for you, just based on this, just because I'm thinking like, okay, so let me explain my frame of mind here with it, in that, okay, so like for instance, there's Ubisoft Connect. I have subscribed to Ubisoft Connect before, just for the sake of, oh, a new Assassin's Creed game came out, cool, I'm gonna play this. Let me subscribe to this subscription service, and then I play it for like a week, beat it, and then, okay, cancel it. I don't need it another month. Okay, that just saved me, like, let's say if I did it with Shadows or whatever, and Shadows was like an $80 game or a $70 game or whatever, then that saves me like $55 because it's a $15 subscription versus a $70 game. And so my thought process is like, okay, how many people have got to be doing that? One, with Game Pass, where, oh, okay, this new game's coming out, I'm gonna play it, I'm gonna get Game Pass for 1 month, pay Microsoft like, what is it, like $10 or $15, and then there you go. That is way less money than someone going, okay, I'm gonna buy this $70 game.
Yep.
And so that's a lot less money in the pocket of the developers and less money in the pocket of like Microsoft in a whole and everything. So therefore they have less money to give everybody. So really I can see that being an issue there. But now the question I have for you, because you said that there are plenty of games that you would never have played if it weren't for Game Pass. Now, the big question is, and you know what? Feel free to answer this in the comments if you'd like, if you've made it this far. But if Game Pass didn't exist and we had instead like demos that you paid for, would you rather it be a paid demo, or would you rather have Game Pass? Like, let's say this demo is like $2 and you get an hour to play it, to try out the game. And then whatever you put into it, like let's say you pay that $2 comes off the final price. Would you rather that, or would you rather Game Pass?
Okay, so this opens up a whole new sector of this conversation, which, very good question. I think the thing with Game Pass, and it's very much you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, where it's like, all right, let's just say Game Pass exists. Great, there's the service, you try the games, and then you can go on to buy them. But then if there's no Game Pass, will there be availability there? To answer your question, though, I don't think people, myself included, especially nowadays, knowing what I know about gaming and seeing all of like how games turn out to be duds most of the time, I think people will be a lot more selective in that, and I don't think people would just go out willy-nilly and spend the $2 to be like, I'll give this game a try. Like, I think that, like, for an example, just rabbit out of the hat, we were talking about Battlefield, John and I. I don't think people are going to be willing to go out and spend $2 to try out the new Battlefield, primarily because what has that franchise proven recently to incentivize people to do that? And that's where I'm kind of like iffy on it. Only
Okay.
it's also just the idea that so much is available to you, and it's like, yeah, I can essentially try it, air quotes, risk free, and go on and have a good experience, and then later down the line, if, let's just say, bad example, but Hi-Fi Rush, game I never would have played on my own. Played it, loved it. If at any point Hi-Fi Rush 2 came out through Xbox Game Pass, I would definitely go out and buy the game versus, hey, I'm going to try it on Game Pass because, like, I know the game, I know the studio, and this is a worthwhile investment.
See, you and I have different thought process on this.
I
I'd
know.
so much rather just pay for a demo. And like I say that because like I said, my frame of mind is like, oh, okay, I can pay $15 for Game Pass, whatever, play this game, beat it. Cool. Whatever.
Yeah.
But like I have that mind frame of like those people who like for Steam, for instance, you get a free, like, you essentially get a free 2-hour demo with every Steam game because like you can buy it, download it, play it for 2 hours, and if you don't like it, you can refund it. So it's like, hey, free 2-hour demo for like every game essentially. But so I I know that there's those people who buy it and beat it in 2 hours or whatever, and then they go, oh, yeah, okay, now I can refund it because I beat it within 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yay, I played the whole game. Cool. And like I'm sure that probably invites people to do that. Like, oh yeah, let me pay $2 to get this game to
Oh,
beat it
yeah.
in like a 2-hour period or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
But
speedrun it.
yeah, exactly. But it's like I don't know. I feel like the incentive is more there where, oh, I've already put money into this. I've already paid $2, $3 just to play the demo for a couple hours, just to try the game out, see if I like it. And, with the added benefit, like I said, of that money that you put into it coming off the final price, I feel like that's a big incentive for people to want to be like, oh, okay, well, you know what? Now if I buy the game, it's only going to be $67 versus 70. There you go. I already have this. And like, let that discount apply for X amount of time after you've played that little demo,
Yeah, it's so weird, and I agree with you on this aspect of there's other ways to exploit it, and I'm guilty of, like, I played South of Midnight, and like I played it, beat it, uninstalled it, just because it's not a game that I'm gonna go back to consistently in X, Y, and Z. But I also view it as like it's not a thing where you're gonna release the game that sells 10 million copies, whatever. I view Game Pass as what's the word for it? Like, not the hatchery, but like the facilitator for games to go to find success that normally would die on their own. Like, that's where I'm approaching Game Pass for. Like, it's like the Pal Worlds, the Pentiments, Grounded.
Well, I don't know. You say Pal World, but I feel like Pal World is such an enigma in this because Pal World's like the second most ever, like, top selling game ever on Steam.
Yeah.
So it's like that game in itself, I don't think did as well on Game Pass versus people just buying it on Steam.
Pal World asterisk for me because that's where I downloaded and played it versus like Pentiment, Grounded, and like Sea of Thieves and all that stuff. That's where I view that as, where it's like, oh, like it's helping smaller titles, and I think that's the message that they pitched a long time ago with Game Pass to say like, yeah, Xbox will have day one games like Halo, Gears of War, whatever. But there's going to be a treasure trove of other smaller titles that you normally wouldn't find or would go on to release and die within the first 2 weeks. Like, it encourages developers to get back to what gaming used to be about, and that's taking the risk, taking the thing. But at the same time, too, we talk about taking risks in gaming, and we talk about doing all this, and it's like, oh, that'll get your studio closed down in 2.5 seconds nowadays, which
Yeah.
again, we've just seen Xbox do with Perfect Dark, teams across Halo and all that stuff. Like, it's bad. Like, gaming, I think the fundamental thing in gaming that needs to change is how we develop games, how long it takes, and how much money we're funneling into them. Because clearly, that is the ailment. That is the clear and away thing that is tanking the industry as a whole. And a lot of people are seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you on that, but I also like disagree like in the sense of like Game Pass, for instance. Like I don't think that it is this like amazing arc for like
Mm,
smaller titles to flock to for salvation, because if it were, then the studio that made Hi-Fi Rush wouldn't have been closed down.
yeah, don't bring that up
They would
around
have seen
John. He'd be
they
very
would have
mad.
seen, oh my god, there's so many downloads of Hi-Fi Rush. Oh, there's so many people hopping on Game Pass because of that game.
Yeah.
Cool. What would have been the point of shutting that studio down then if they brought in more subscriptions, which
Yeah.
are supposed to help by giving money directly to, the Xbox
Yeah.
division or like to Microsoft, because that money, like, it's supposed to be used for like helping the studios, but instead I feel like it would have been more helpful for the studio just to get them money for the full price of the game, and then
Yeah.
they would have gotten their share.
Such a
And it would
double-edged
have been,
sword.
yeah, and that's why I'm saying, like, I don't think Game Pass, like, I can see somewhat it's being sustainable, but I feel like it's only sustainable if they were to increase the price of it by a lot.
Which it will be coming, I assume.
And yeah, I assume that the price increases will be coming, but I assume, like, I think if you want it to be profitable, Microsoft's going to have to up it from like being $15 a month to something more like $60 a month. Something that's like an absurd price that people aren't going to want to pay. And they'd rather just buy the game at that point. And that's where I think it's unsustainable, like,
Yeah.
and that's why that's why I brought up the whole demo thing, because I feel like that would do essentially what Game Pass does, but incentivize people to buy the game instead of joining a subscription service that ultimately will end up with the results of this studio getting shut down because not enough people are joining Game Pass. And that might have something to do with it. Like, in my mind, that has something to do with it, at least, where
Yeah.
let's say you have 100 people on Game Pass. Cool. That's great and all, but then, okay, this game comes out, two more people join Game Pass, but the other people are already on Game Pass.
Yeah.
You're not getting any more money. You're getting like $30 more. And that's
Yeah.
not enough to sustain that game.
No, that is exactly the crux of like where the weakness of Game Pass is. Whether it will continue to bring in new people, and
Yeah.
it's a tightrope that they got to walk, where you have to find the right. It's simply not just jacking up the price. It's finding the right number where consumers can get value that are already there and want to continue subscribing, and then what's the number for new people to jump in and kind of say, hey, like, let's try it. But it's something where, just throwing more games into the service, I don't know if that's going to be the answer. I don't know if Call of Duty can continue doing what it's doing for Game Pass. It's very interesting, and following all these cuts and all of these blunders by Microsoft, you're just gonna have to sit here and kind of go on the ride they're taking us on, I guess, at this point.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. I'm beating a dead horse here with what I'm saying with it, honestly.
All
But
valid
it's just
points,
like I
though.
said. Just like I said, though, it's unsustainable. It reminds me of like Netflix, where like Netflix was like, oh yeah, we need to meet like a certain number of subscribers, like
Yep.
hitting every month, or else we're gonna have to start putting ads in. And then they started putting ads in because they couldn't do it with the number of subscribers that were currently there.
Yeah.
They had to keep getting more and more and more, and it wasn't helping. Like they weren't getting that, and so it didn't help, and they ultimately had to put ads. And so I feel like Xbox is going to be the same thing, where it's going to be, they need, even if it's like, I'm going to talk low numbers here because I don't want to talk like massive numbers here, but like, again, they have 100 people. Okay, to sustain it, they need to get an additional like 100 people every month.
Yeah.
Okay, they aren't getting that 100 people every month. Instead, they're getting like 20, and that's not
Not gonna work
sustainable
out.
for them. That's not going to help fund all the games. Instead, so they're either going to need to do one of two things: either find a way to get more people there, or they're going to have to increase the price. And I feel like the increase the price is
That's
going
gonna.
to be the option they choose,
Oh
because
yeah.
more people aren't going to go there unless it suddenly becomes the world's greatest console, and suddenly becomes the only console.
Yeah.
You know, it's with competition that they're going to find their downfall in that, because it's like you have PlayStation, and like if there's a 50-50 split, which I know there probably isn't, but like if there's a 50-50 split and you have, you know, 100 people on PlayStation, 100 people on Xbox, you're not going to convince those people who are on PlayStation to just suddenly come to Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
They've already invested the money into PlayStation.
All I gotta say is, if I log on to Xbox one day and I get a Whopper commercial, there will be a gamer grudge held where we discuss why I should not be seeing a damn Whopper commercial from Burger King on my Xbox. So just keep that one in the back of your mind in case you're
I mean,
watching this.
Ubisoft already tried it on in game, so
Allegedly they didn't. They
Assassin's
said
Creed.
it was just a glitch. But
Allegedly.
allegedly. But yeah, no, Game Pass continues to be very, very interesting to talk about and just see where they go with it. So yeah, that's where we're going to pass it off to you guys. What do you think about Game Pass? Is it sustainable? Is there things they can do to fix it? Let us know in the comments down below. And why don't you at Phil Spencer to kind of help right the ship, apparently.
Give
So
them the demo idea. I like that idea.
pass it
Okay,
along. Pass it along. But that about does it here for this episode of Community Kitchen. We hope you guys enjoyed. If you want more gaming content just like this, keep it locked to Game Sandwich for all your gaming news, rumors, and reviews. And if you're new here, join our Discord. Links is down in the video description. Yeah, wow. Oh my gosh, I'm falling apart. Links are in the video description down below. But as of right now, I've been Kalo, joined by Aden, and we'll see you guys next time.
The X in Xbox stands for xylophone.
If you enjoyed today's video and want more content just like this, consider subscribing to Game Sandwich for all your news, rumors, and reviews. And we'll see you guys next time.